What is up, everybody? Welcome to the NumberBet Spreads podcast, where we go through each week and talk through these super contest lines, give you some advice based on what our models spit out, what our guts tell us, and also throw some strategy in there for how to maybe make up some ground if you're trailing in whatever picks contest you're playing in. I do it with my buddy Milo. He's with me here. What's up, dude?
Not a whole lot. I'm pumped to have a new week that is maybe a little bit less straightforward than last week. Last week there were the obvious games where if you were playing in these contests and you didn't have the Saints come Sunday morning, I had a lot of questions about what you were doing in that contest. So it doesn't look like we have that many of those games this week, though. So hopefully at this point.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, but fingers crossed right now. We look okay. This is a slate with not a ton of injury concerns. We talked about them a little bit ahead of the show. Like Daniel Jones is someone to keep an eye on. He could shift the line maybe a little bit. You joked not so much. I think it could be maybe up to 2 points. I think you're closer to one there. We'll get to that game specifically. Niners are getting healthier. We're talking about some interesting futures bets. Stuff on the NFC, guys to win the NFC. I'm playing with the Bears at 250 to 1 and the Niners at 50 to 1. Those are both kind of tempting to me. 250 to 1. I know the Bears are bad, Milo, but what do you think, man?
I mean, in Mitch we trust, right? You could say 250 to 1, but I think what we're all realizing is that we thought Arizona kind of had that last playoff spot locked up, and maybe they really don't. Maybe Kyler is a little bit more hurt than they're leading on. And so that 7 spot seems to be pretty much wide open for a couple of teams, Minnesota, Chicago, San Francisco, Arizona. Those are the 4 that you're going for it. And, you can make an argument that San Francisco is maybe the most talented team of that group. Chicago obviously has –
Come on, maybe.
The quarterback is a problem. I'm just going to say it is a problem. It is an issue. Are you telling me that Nick Mullins is going to lead them as the 7 seed and then march them through the entire NFC? I mean, strange things occur. The NFL is bizarre.
I don't know if it's a good thing or not, but they might get Jimmy back.
I mean, that's kind of the X factors. What if he comes back and looks like he did last year, where he's protected, they run the ball, a lot of play action. He does have some more playmakers this year. And I think that's why we're all kind of sensing that there is a little bit of value there compared to what the numbers should be. But, all these teams could turn around and all 4 of them could lose this weekend, and then they'd all be in the exact same situation. So it's an interesting thing that's going to play out because 1 through 6 seems pretty solid in the NFC.
Yes, and that's what got me looking at this stuff last week is based on the odds that the books were putting out there. They had basically given the playoff spot to the Cardinals already, and I just didn't buy that. So, it's like, well, it's them, the Bears or the Niners, most likely. It's going to be hard for any of the other teams to get in that battle, and the Niners are kind of the team with the momentum and kind of picking up some steam. In a way, like the bad thing is they don't have a home field. But aside from that, personnel-wise and all that, I think that that's kind of the team on the rise. Let's get into the games, though, and talk through some of these lines. We had like 30 minutes of small talk before we even got the show started, so we're going to be on this call for a long time.
You just enjoy my company. It's okay. I mean, you don't have to pretend like you don't. It's fine.
Yeah, man. It's anyone that likes to talk sports. I mean, it's hard for me to not talk for a long time about that.
I thought we were here to talk Taylor Swift and the top songs of Taylor Swift's career, but is that for later? Is that a different podcast now?
I don't know. I don't have any idea what you're talking about, man. But the Bears and Lions. Bears are at home. Bears are favorites here, and it's a team that I'm considering to win the NFC, as stupid as that sounds. But this is one of the reasons why. There's a really good chance that they're going to win this game. Better than 50% chance, right? I actually think that they should be 5-point favorites. What do you have it at?
So I have it at 2, but I'm with you. I really like the Bears in this game. The defense has been solid. If the offense can give them anything, they should be more than fine. And frankly, Detroit looks like they quit on their coach, so the coach got fired. And now DeAndre Swift is maybe not going to come back. Kenny Golladay appears like he's not going to come back. So this Detroit offense has no weapons against a really good defense on the road. And to go completely old school, it is a dome team coming outside in the weather with a good defense, if I want to sound like the 1980s guy on TV, but that's a factor in this situation, considering who's out there. And Chicago's a team that I'm definitely was leaning on having in my top 5.
Yeah, they're a team that is in consideration for me as one of the top 5 picks. Again, just a team that is looking like they're trending downward with Detroit. You mentioned the DeAndre Swift injury just got cleared of concussion protocol, which was interesting considering the comments Adrian Peterson made and other teammates too, basically saying that it doesn't look right. So, I mean, I hope they don't play him with his teammates saying that kind of stuff. I'd be sad if they played him, but that's a bad thing for the outlook of the team. I talked about it last week that it's like the team is a much different team if they're giving the ball to DeAndre Swift 20 times against Houston instead of Adrian Peterson, right? Like it's just going to project a lot differently. So I'm not high on that offense, especially, again, you pointed out like Kenny Golladay probably not back. Danny Amendola will be back, it looks like. He practiced in full, got some limited practice in yesterday as well. So he's trending towards playing, but this offense doesn't project well against one of the best defenses.
I agree 1,000%. I mean, I'm more than happy that this line stays at 3 and to be on the Bears in this spot.
Let's move on to the Dolphins and Bengals. This is one of the more difficult lines to set, I think, because of the new quarterback situation for the Bengals. Last week talked about how, for me anyway, usually I am not discounting the backup as much as the market is and Vegas is and everything. I find myself on the backup quarterbacks more often than not. It's not an envious position, right? It's not one that you're just excited to target or anything. So while my model is going to say that the Dolphins should be this big of a favorite and there's maybe this much value in Cincinnati, I don't necessarily feel comfortable taking it. Where do you stand on this with the line at 11.5?
I mean, the line definitely feels like it's too big for Miami to cover. I mean, without officially knowing who's going to be the quarterback for the Dolphins 100%, it is difficult. And I know you're talking about backup quarterbacks, and I think you're talking about Cincinnati, but you could also be talking about Miami here. So my model has it at 7.5, which definitely puts a lean towards Cincinnati, but there's not a lot of confidence in it for the levels that I would feel comfortable betting this game. I mean, it kind of feels like Cincinnati's the correct side here. As much as we've ridden Miami, I think that the market is caught up, and now the spreads have gotten bigger and bigger for Miami after the loss in Denver. Giving a touchdown last week on the road, now 11.5 at home. I went from believing in Miami to now I kind of think I need to see it because the defense has kind of – I mean, they were good last week, but it's against the Jets. It doesn't really count. But I definitely just kind of want to see a little bit more out of them before I kind of lock them in. And it just – I don't feel comfortable in this spot laying that many points with them.
Yeah, the model says to take Cincy here, but it's like I just can't do it. And – talking about backup quarterbacks, like I don't really think of Ryan Fitzpatrick as a backup necessarily. He's the backup for that team most likely, but we're talking about with Brandon Allen, Ryan Finley, like those guys are backup quarterbacks. Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's at least in the middle of
he's a real person. Yeah.
He's a tier between the starters and the backups, man. Like I have a little more faith in him, so I'm just gonna stay away from this one. Let's move on to the Texans and the Colts. We've got the Colts as 3.5-point road favorites. Texans have looked a lot better, pointed to the coaching change for that. Phillip Rivers has been up and down. Last week, more down than up. Jonathan Taylor as well has been missing. He was missing last week, so they ran a combo of Naheem Hines and Wilkins out there. The offense just could do better, but against the Texans, they should be able to run at least, right?
I mean, this is the absolute perfect spot. The Colts -3 was one of the first things I bet this week right away as soon as I saw that line. Excuse me. So Houston loses Will Fuller for the rest of the year, suspension. Randall Cobb is hurt, so they have few weapons. Say what you want, the Colts defense is very, very good. Besides the fact they got shredded last week, I understand they were run on. Houston can't run the ball, so what are we worried about here? On the other side of it, everybody seems to be able to throw the ball on Houston pretty much up and down the board. I mean, even Detroit last week was able to score some points with no weapons and dusty Adrian Peterson out there scoring 2 touchdowns. So I would be more than happy, as I already have by betting it, to be on the Colts in this one. The Colts are a playoff team. The defense is solid despite the quarterback situation that they have. And I think Houston's going to struggle to score. I think the Colts will put up just enough points. My model has the spread at 6 points, and it is the level where it was an auto bet. And before I even ran my numbers, I had already bet them, and seeing that was just even more of a conviction that I'm on the right spot here. So I feel pretty good about the Colts in this one, and they will definitely be in my 5 for sure.
Yeah, is Buckner back? Buckner was the reason that they got ran on last week. So
I didn't see if he had cleared the COVID protocols or whatever yet, but I'm assuming he's back because aren't we down to 1 week you're out for COVID unless?
I think so. Yeah, seems like it. So yeah, like you say, it's not a big worry there anyway for that. I don't have a super strong lean in this one. My model says to go with the Texans here, but not by much. So the fact that you like the Colts has me hesitant, and I'm cool with avoiding this one and finding something better. So I'm good with your analysis there. I agree with all of it. It's just that the numbers spit out something different. Let's move on to Minnesota and Jacksonville. So the Vikings are at home, and they're 10-point favorites against Jacksonville. I think they said they're going to start Glennon again, right? So Glennon's going to get another shot. Didn't look great or anything. It seems like Minshew's clearly the best quarterback there, but I don't even know if he's fully healthy yet. So part of that decision, maybe it's just between Luton and Glennon. If that's the case, then I guess you would have to go with Glennon. Although, it looks like Minshew's ready to go, man.
I think that they have decided. I mean, they fired the GM after their last game, and we all know the coach is next. This is going to be a complete retooling, and they're just going to kind of rebuild. But there is no quarterback on the roster. I mean, we know that, and we have known that. And I don't care who starts for the most part. I mean, outside of Luton. But having said all that, I don't feel confident taking Minnesota and laying a bunch of points. The last time they played a bad team was Dallas, and they struggled. They couldn't really stop Dallas. And my model has it at 8 with a slight lean to Jacksonville. It's just under the level that would be an auto bet for me, which sounds insane, being like, oh, yeah, Mike Glennon on the road. Load up. Let's go. But that's kind of where I'm leaning is towards the Jacksonville side, but I'm probably going to stay away at this point.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards the Jacksonville side as well. But again, I'm going to stay away. This feels like it's going to be just an ugly game. Maybe some value in DFS. Get to that over the weekend. But no, thank you. If they were to say that, oh, never mind, Minshew's starting now, then I would be all about Jacksonville. I don't think Minshew's that bad, man. Like, and you look at his numbers, and I mean, the numbers aren't everything, but they're pretty solid this year. Like 13 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, passer rating 94.4, 265 yards a game. That's not bad if you just looked at the numbers. And I don't know, man. Mike Glennon, we'll see what happens. Any final thoughts on this?
It just feels like they are officially in we're going to find our franchise quarterback because he's not on the roster. I mean, I'm not saying that Minshew's bad, but I'm just saying he's not the guy who's going to win you a Super Bowl. And they know that at this point. He has enough starts. He's been around enough. Sure, could he have a Ryan Fitzpatrick career? Yes, 100%. If you told me he was going to back up Ben Roethlisberger next year in Pittsburgh, I'd be all about that, honestly.
Yeah, no, he'd be a great backup. I mean, they know it's not Glennon though. And I don't know. Whatever. Let's go to your team. Let's talk about the Steelers and the Washington football team. This one actually is moved to Monday. My spreadsheet's all out of order because the rescheduling and all that kind of stuff. So we're jumping around a little bit here, but the Steelers are at home and they're 7.5-point favorites. I've got them as 10.5-point favorites. What do you have them as?
I have them as 10-point favorites, so I'm kind of in the same boat. Now, to be fair, this game was set to open at 10, and then the Steelers, dropped a bunch of passes, didn't look fantastic against the depleted Ravens. So then some money came in on Washington to kind of drop it to 7.5, where it is for the contest. Oh, I mentioned this in our Slack chat, and the Steelers, after playing the Ravens, traditionally do not cover. That was the Dallas game this year after playing the Ravens. They're just not focused. They beat the rivals, so they come out and they look sloppy the next week. The only thing I will say is that Mike Tomlin was very, very upset, and not like the, hey, we beat our rivals and a team that we don't like. He was more like, he came out of his press conference like, we sucked. We got lucky to win. We were terrible. Like, just pretty much bashed everybody top to bottom. So, the instincts here are to be on Washington, if I'm being completely honest, just because of what I've seen from the Steelers before. Mike Pouncey's going to be out the center. Washington has a great defensive line. Kind of scares me a little bit. The Steelers can't run the ball. If Ben has time with his receivers, he'll be fine. But I'm going to stay away from this one because it is a sandwich game in between Baltimore and then at Buffalo on Sunday night the following week for the Steelers. So everything says pointing to Pittsburgh, and our numbers are pointing there, but I'm going to stay away, even though it's my team.
I'm taking Pittsburgh. So, I mean, part of it is like they're going to be somewhat contrarian. And it's like, 80-90% of the bets or whatever have come in on Washington, but that's a little bit deceptive for the contest because those were coming in at higher numbers, right? Like people were taking Washington at 10 and 9.5 and not this number here. So there would be a little more action on the Steelers here. But to me, it's like, all right, value and potentially contrarian, which – again, we'll see because it's a different number than what's out there right now. But that's just – I can't pass that up. I think the Steelers are top 3 team, top 2 team maybe. And they're facing a team led by Alex Smith and a good defense, but not even the best defense on the field. And you're basically the only reason you could buy Washington, I think, is playing into some sort of narrative. And like some narratives are good, right? Like the short rest and that sort of thing. But I can't do it, man. I can't pass on them. I'm taking the Steelers.
I mean, it is the perfect. I mean, Washington hasn't played since Thanksgiving, and the Steelers are going to play on or have played on Wednesday. So it's the ultimate short rest versus extremely long rest, even longer than a bye week rest almost. So I get it. If this falls to 7, though, I mean, I'll just be max betting it everywhere I could possibly find if we get to 7 in terms of betting markets. But for the contest, where it is. Listen, I understand that today, right now, I'm not going to take it. But Sunday morning, when I have to go lock in my picks and looking for a 5th one, and I don't know who to trust, I'm really unsure. I will end up gravitating towards Pittsburgh, as I often do. They are 8-3 against the spread this year, and could have very easily covered 2 of those 3 other games on the last possession. So I get it.
Yeah, the press conference was pretty funny. Basically, every question he got asked, it was one of those where it was like, well, it was because we sucked. Well, it was because we sucked. It was like his answer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. We'll see how good of a coach Mike Tomlin is, right, Milo? That's one of our hot topics in Slack every week is Mike Tomlin a good coach or not? Joe on the side of no, you, of course, and the other Steeler fans on the side of yes. I'm somewhere in between where it's like, I mean, he's got to be pretty good considering the AB drama and all that kind of stuff, Le'Veon Bell, all that kind of stuff gets my respect.
He has never had a season worse than 8-8. Never. In any of his seasons, never worse than 8-8. So I don't care if they've underachieved with the talent they've had, which they definitely have done at times. They also had to go through the best dynasty that's ever existed with the New England Patriots. So I am a Tomlin defender. many in Pittsburgh or not, but I will continue and always be a Tomlin defender. He won 9 games last year with Duck Hodges playing quarterback for 7 of them.
I was just gonna say, that's like the only thing you can point to, though, because otherwise it's just, I would answer with, no, Ben Roethlisberger has gone 8-8 every season that Mike Tomlin's been a coach, and not Mike Tomlin. Like, that is not the reason there. The quarterback means way more than the coach in this situation, I think. All right, let's move on, though. Let's see. Let's go to the Raiders game. The Raiders and the Jets. Jets are at home, and the Jets are big dogs. Jets are 8.5-point dogs. Raiders, again, one of those teams up and down, I guess. A team that I think is undervalued a bit, sometimes by us, and it's a team that's kind of hard to figure out because I don't think they necessarily do things optimally. They're a team that wants to go old school, right? With Gruden and running the ball a lot and that kind of stuff. And it's just, I mean, the nerds want you to air it out, and they've got David Carr, man. So they're probably going to be able to air it out against the Jets, right?
I mean, I would think so. Last week the Raiders were one of the most publicly bet teams, and all of the publicly bet teams last week did not cover. Many of them lost outright. In this spot, I have it at 9, so there's a slight lean towards Vegas, but not a dramatic one. I mean, if the Raiders are as good, and I'm going to be honest, I don't think I've gotten the Raiders right, and I've talked about it multiple times. Last week, got them wrong again. If the Raiders win and cover, I wasn't on them. If I'm on them, they play terrible and look horrid. I've done that like so many times. The only time I got them right this year is when Tampa played there and their entire defense, their offensive line was quarantined for the week, and I was on Tampa. That's the only time I think I've gotten them right. So in this spot, I kind of like them, to be honest with you. If they can't blow out the Jets after what they did last week, then there's a lot of questions of should they be a playoff team, which they kind of look like they should be, but this is a spot where it is a must that they have to absolutely win. And come on, this feels like a blowout spot, doesn't it? They threw everybody off last week by laying a massive egg in Atlanta. Now they get to come back out and play this team that's terrible. And all of a sudden, everybody's like, oh, look at the Raiders. And no one will be on them this week because of what they did last week. They'll be kind of contrarian in the contest because everybody will be leery of laying 8 or 8.5 after what happened last week.
You think so? People always bet against the Jets, man. Especially at this point. The Jets are, I think, the worst team against the spread this season. One of, if not the worst. They have 3 wins.
Yeah, Dallas, I think, is up there.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Dallas, especially after, even with Dak, right? They did really poorly.
Mm-hmm.
But
they were like 0-6 before he got hurt.
3 of the last 5, their 3 wins against the spread have come in the last 5 games. So there's that for them. But the Raiders before that last game were on a stretch too, where they were just covering, which you know very, very well. My model says to take the Jets here, but I don't trust it. I mean, I would lean towards the Raiders for a lot of the reasons you're saying here. It just seems like this is one of those situations where the double-digit win, the big win, it's going to come, right? It's just the Jets are so bad, man, that even the Raiders will be able to win by double digits, I think. So I'm staying away, but it sounds like this is in consideration for you with your top 5.
It's in consideration, but it's something I'm very readily to throw out.
I don't think they'll be contrarian, though. I'll say that. People just are going to take whoever's playing the Jets, I feel like. Maybe I got that read wrong, but people know the Jets suck.
I'm going to pull up where the tickets and percentages are right now real quick, just because I'm curious where we are at this point in the week with them.
Do it.
I take it back. 66% of the bets have been on the Raiders, but also the money has too to drive the lineup. So, you have professionals and the public are both on them. It's at this point. So,
but the line's not moving in the Super, and it's 8.5. So it's like, for the line to be it's 9.5 now, right? I think Vegas will actually be pretty popular, but we'll see. Like you said, you change your stance a little bit there, and I think they'll be somewhat popular. Let's go to the Falcons and the Saints. The Falcons Whew, man. I don't know. I don't know what to make of them because every time you kind of like write them off, Matt Ryan looks a little better, but then you count on them, and Matt Ryan looks like he's 45 years old. And they're going up against Saints defense, I think is pretty good, right? Um, and a Saints offense that is performed better than people expect. Although last week they weren't really tested. It's hard to kind of judge what they did last week, but I don't know, man. What do you think of the Falcons here versus the Saints? It's a 3-point spread with the Falcons at home being underdogs.
So let me first say that this kind of breaks my model a little bit because of all the data and past everything. So I have this number at 9, which is obviously a 6-point difference, but the confidence level still doesn't reach like a crazy high level in terms of what I always look at in breaking this down. Having said all that, I was reading some things where Atlanta's defense is pretty much top 6 in every single category since they fired their coach and turned it over to Raheem Morris. So that leads me to believe that the defense has been playing significantly better. And now you have a New Orleans offense that, I hate to say this, but appears pretty one-dimensional maybe at this point, which feels a little bit strange to me. And I frankly don't know what to do with this game. It certainly seems like, because didn't we have this game 2 weeks ago, Taysom's first start, right? And everybody was on Atlanta +5, Atlanta +6, and then it came down, and it was 4.5 by game time. And then Atlanta's offense went out there and did absolutely nothing the entire game. And the Saints were able to pretty much run with, Michael Thomas caught a bunch of passes and looked pretty good, had one of his better fantasy games. Here we get to run it back a couple weeks later. It feels almost too easy to go and just bet New Orleans. That's kind of my worry. Despite what Atlanta's defense has done and fixed themselves, it's really the New Orleans defense that I'd be betting on here. My model's telling me this should be an auto bet, but I am hesitant because I know that the teams are not the same because all the data that's in there is not exactly accurate, even with my hand adjustment in some categories.
Yeah, so one thing is, I think the run defense has gotten a lot better. If you look at what they have been doing relative to expectation, which is something, if you follow me on Twitter, you saw me post a chart. Obviously, been doing a lot of research into that category, right? The Falcons are doing way better than you would think. They're among the best teams since the coaching change against running backs. And yet, you're going to hear every week everyone say, oh, we'll take running backs against Atlanta, take pass catching running backs against Atlanta. You'll hear that narrative when it's actually been a trash matchup in DFS. And and including for Kamara 2 weeks ago, which maybe partly has to do with the scheme and the new quarterback and all that. But if you listen to the comments from the players and they're asked, okay, so what's the difference with the coaching? Why is the defense turned around? They point to physicality. And when you point to the physicality and them saying, well, the coach just wants us to overpower the other team, those sort of things. I think of the run game. I don't think of the pass game. I think the pass game is like finesse and, that sort of thing. The run game is battle in the trenches and fighting for extra yardage. And that all makes sense to me, that the Falcons are performing better in that area. So if you can shut down the run against the Saints, and again, throw the first game out of the picture, because we already know the result there. We already saw what happened. They didn't exactly know what to expect. Now it's fresh in their minds exactly what Taysom Hill does and what the plan is for the Saints. Think about what you would want against the Saints. Shut down the run. Force Taysom Hill to pass. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think you lean Atlanta here with their defense playing better, just being able to keep it close and, not expecting them to win necessarily or anything, but Saints don't care about winning by double digits or something, it could be one of these ugly wins, especially if they do rely on the run game and maybe they win it with the run game. It's probably not going to be some huge differential if it's a low-scoring game and an ugly game like that. So I'm with you, man. I'm leaning towards the Falcons.
It's just one of those, where's the public going to land on this game? I mean, they're obviously going to be all over the Saints. They know what happened. They know what happened with the Saints last week. They're understanding the situation with Breeze. And Atlanta is definitely undervalued, but last week if you'd have just walked into the sports book and said, "Who is the public betting in all of these games? Who's the obvious game?" and you just went the other way, you printed money last week, and this kind of feels like that spot here. And of course, public does get some games right, and I like I said, my model tells me to take it, but I am very leery, so this will be an avoid for me, I think.
Yeah, I've got it. I've got it as a play for New Orleans, but don't trust it. Some of it may be too heavily weighted towards Breeze, right? I mean, I've adjusted for Hill being in there, but I like the Falcons here. I'm going to go against what the model says. Let's move to the Titans and the Browns. We've got the Titans as, if I can find them, Titans as 5.5-point favorites at home. Browns, I think the Titans have looked a lot better, man, than the Browns have, but the Browns have a good record. There's that. The defense is pretty good. Mayfield, like, is he going to throw 3 or 4 interceptions? Who knows? But the run game's going to be good.
This is, it's weird to think of this, but I feel like the Browns are almost going to be a public dog in this game. This is a game where I think a public person is going to walk in and they're going to say that feels like it's too many points. And my natural inclination was the same thing. If that feels like that's too many points. And my model has -4, so there's definitely a lean on Cleveland. It thinks that it is slightly too many points, but I can't do Baker on the road. I ended up with Baker on the road last week in Jacksonville, and that did not go so well as they kind of gave up a touchdown on I'll just say a questionable personal foul that extended the drive for Jacksonville. But whatever, doesn't matter. It goes in the books as an L. I got to take it. So I really want to take Cleveland in this spot, but I'm also I don't feel comfortable ever taking Baker on the road in any situation. What happened whenever Cleveland went into Pittsburgh for a big game against a good team? Lose. I said this, and I'm going to keep saying it every week. Cleveland beats bad teams, and they struggle with anybody who's above average. They've continued to do it the entire year. Oakland went into their home, beat them. Pittsburgh, beat them. Baltimore, beat them. All of Cleveland's wins are against teams with a losing record outside of the Indianapolis Colts. That's it. Tennessee has a winning record, so therefore I just kind of want to stay away from this, even though I understand what my model's saying.
Yeah, I'm going to stay away here. I've got it 5 points, so I mean that's half a point of value there. But no, thank you. I'm good with going on to the next game and avoiding this. So if I had to pick a team, it'd be Tennessee. But I mean, no, I don't have to pick a team. Let's go to the Seahawks and the Giants. So this one's interesting because Daniel Jones hasn't practiced Wednesday or Thursday. So there's a chance we could see a pretty bad backup in there, Colt McCoy. If that's the case, then I'm going to be on the Seahawks side for sure. As it is, I have about a half a point of value towards the Seahawks. Where do you have it?
Slightly the other direction. I have this line at 8, so there is a little bit of value on the Giants for what I have. But, I mean, how could you possibly feel comfortable taking a backup quarterback on the road in Seattle? I will say that the Giants have looked better, and they seem to be coming together a little bit, especially defensively. But Seattle definitely has made some changes. Their defense looks much, much better. They're not getting gashed for as many big plays, especially in the passing game, as they had been. If Jones was playing, again, I can definitely see the argument for taking the Giants, but I will probably stay away. And my one worry is everybody who plays teasers in any way, shape, or form in betting, there is no way they're not throwing Seattle in a teaser this week. You take a 6-point tease down to -4, a 7-point tease down to -3. That almost seems too easy. So I'm kind of afraid of that in a little bit of ways because those public things always seem to get into trouble. And I can't pick this game for the contest. If I got to find 5, this is not going to be one of my 5 unless, if they say Daniel Jones is out, then I could definitely see this line climbing north. And then if it does at some point where there's some value, then I definitely would probably jump on. But for now, it's a no for me.
So you're taking the Giants if Jones is out. Is that what you're saying?
No, if Jones plays, I think I would lean towards taking the Giants. If he doesn't, I'm not going to play the game at all. Maybe lean Seattle, but probably not. I explained that incorrectly.
Could have just been me surfing through my tabs on my browser here and not paying attention. That's a very legitimate possibility. But yeah, I think that the Seahawks would be the bet for me if Daniel Jones is out, and that I might avoid it if not. Although I don't know, I kind of like the Seahawks. I just hate taking these bigger spreads. I've said a lot on these shows. I prefer the really tight spreads that I'm essentially picking the winner. I have a lot more confidence in my ability to do that than to know the difference between 9 and 11 points. I mean, I don't love that. So that's going to ultimately be the reason I probably avoid this. But my lean would be towards Seattle here. Let's go to division battle. We've got the Rams as 3-point favorites in Arizona, which is, wait a minute, the Niners are in Arizona too, right? This week?
Yes. I'm not sure how
the Niners are Monday though. That's why.
Yeah. That's what I say. They're the Monday night game. Yeah.
That threw me off because I was like, I have in my notes.
I thought the same thing too. I was like, wait a minute.
Okay, we're all caught up here, guys. We get it. We know what's happening. All right, so we'll be the first team of the week, the Cardinals, to play in Arizona as 3-point underdogs. I think you've kind of liked the Rams in the past, haven't you? You've been pretty high in the Rams this year.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I have a pretty good handle on the Rams. Had them against Seattle, went against them when they were in Miami. Went against them last week against San Francisco. Both of us, in fact, were on San Francisco last week against the Rams. And, obviously that worked out pretty nicely for us. This is a spot where I feel like the public will be coming around and be on the Rams. And my model has this at 2 instead of 3, so not a big edge. But I definitely am ready to back Arizona and jump back on the horse of the Cardinals, even though Cliff Kingsbury looked horrid last week. And they've lost a bunch of games in a row. And if it were not for a Hail Mary a couple weeks ago, that Arizona losing streak would be pretty significant if you go and look through their schedule. So they're fortunate to be where they are. I'm leaning towards Arizona, but not a strong lean. It's more of a perception play, I guess you could say. So in that case, I'm probably not going to play it at all, but the lean is Arizona for me.
Did you mean Kingsbury or did you mean Murray when you said that he looked bad last week?
Yes.
Okay. I wasn't sure if you intentionally meant that the coaching was bad.
Yes.
Because Kyler Murray, very clearly was bad. That was his worst game maybe of his career, but certainly of this season. He had 170 yards passing. And it's New England has been a better defense than people realize, I think. Heading into the season with the opt-outs and everything, everyone kind of wrote the defense off, but they haven't been that bad. But still, 170 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception, and usually wouldn't be a concern, but the fact that he's battling a shoulder injury and it's his throwing shoulder, I do not love that, man. I don't understand betting Arizona here against definitely a better defense than New England, right? So it's just, you're basically saying that you don't think this injury is a thing.
I do think the injury is a thing. I just, it's just kind of a weird situation. It's more about the situational play that I think a lot of people are going to be on the Rams. And I think that everybody has devalued Arizona to the point where they are now a home dog against a team where 3 weeks ago this would have been -3 the other direction, I feel like. So the perception in the situation, the way things have gone the past couple weeks have definitely flipped. Like if I'd have told you 4 weeks ago or whatever that, Arizona after the Hail Mary win was going to be a 3-point dog to the Rams at home, you would have said Kyler's not playing, right? Like something would have had to have gone wrong for them to be a dog like this, right?
I don't know about that. I don't know. I've got a bias against Arizona very clearly. When 2 weeks ago I was looking to make a bet against them essentially by figuring out which other team is going to make the playoffs instead and try to leverage that into an NFC championship bet, right? So I'm the wrong person to agree with you, but I see what you're saying. I see the logic in it and everything. And to be fair, like my model does agree with you and thinks it's a significant value as well. It's 2 points of value, which that's for anyone that's been tracking my model for the last I don't know 2 months now. I would say that like 2 points is a lot in my model if it's going to show that. So I don't trust it now. Not with Kyler. I haven't adjusted at all for the fact that Kyler could be playing hurt, and there's no adjustment to his impact on the game for injury. And honestly, maybe I should if that's what I actually feel, right? So that's what's keeping me away.
I don't disagree with you. Like I said, I'm just going to pretty much stay away, and I'm very frustrated with Arizona last week. We got the James White call correct on New England. I had the low-owned Kyler Murray, Hopkins, Isabella stack, and it resulted in nothing. Everything was perfect for DFS purposes, nothing lined up, and then Arizona blew that game completely, and frustrated with them. I feel like Arizona's a team that everybody was hyped up for at the beginning of the year, and maybe they're a year away.
Yeah, I'm going to surprise everyone and not take the W on James White. I think ultimately it's probably a pretty bad call. 2 touchdowns and 5 yards or something like
rushing touchdowns.
That's about as lucky as it gets. He had 1 catch, and I said that he was going to have set a new career high in reception. So it's sure, did it work out? Yeah. Am I going to take a W on everything that works out? No, I'm not going to be that guy. So probably give me an L on the James White call, as weird as that is. But I hear you. I hear what you're saying. I just got to get that off my chest because it feels dirty, claiming that taking that as a win. I don't like it. Let's move on to the Packers at home against the Eagles. 8.5-point favorites. Packers are looking good, man, recently, and the Eagles are looking as bad as possible, so means we're betting the Eagles, right?
I mean, you want to talk about dirty wins. I mean, I had the Eagles plus 6.5 the other night, so I don't care how that happened. It all spends, it all wins, it all went back into the account. I don't care how ugly it was. I don't care if it kind of looked like it was the wrong call. It definitely worked out, even though I will say I was fortunate to have the Eagles cover because of that 2-point conversion after the Hail Mary that was deflected.
We can't go back-to-back humble calls, man. That's that's bad chemistry. If I take the humble road, you've got to keep it up and be cocky on the next call, man. This is not working out well. We're not going to be this soft show.
You know what's funny is last week we sat here and we talked about how Seattle was going to be the play that everybody was going to be on because it was only -4.5. And I said I was going to wait and try to wait them out to get a good number. And I wanted 7, got 6.5. It worked. Having said all that, the people that took Seattle in the contest, they won and covered. It was the only people that waited. And one of the best lessons you can give anyone sports betting is if you're going to like someone, especially a public side, bet it early because the line's only going to go up, which is exactly what happened there. And just like you said here, we have Philadelphia getting a bunch of points on the road. My model has us at 9, so there's not a big lean, but yep, sign me up for the Eagles. I'll take a bunch of points with them. The defense still looks pretty good. They did a great job against Russ. It's just, I don't know how much offense you're actually going to get here, but enough of it could possibly work. I mean, how many points do you probably need to feel comfortable here? If you get 17 out of that offense, is that enough if you're getting 9? Get you to 26? Maybe not. Maybe you need to get to 20.
No way.
I'm trying to rationalize how many
man.
points I need to feel comfortable. I think they have to score 20 points then, maybe 21 for you to really feel comfortable. So I definitely lean Philadelphia just because I don't know, maybe I have this bias where I continue to back the Eagles for some odd reason because I still see the value in them, and it's just, how many weeks am I going to wait for them to actually perform, even though Carson Wentz is terrible, and go ahead and take your victory lap on saying Carson Wentz was bad 3 years ago or whatever it was, right?
There's too many victory laps on that. That's for sure. But I'm telling you, man, the thing is Hurts is getting more snaps, man, just like last week. Rappaport's going to come out and say that he's going to play more snaps, and we're all going to get excited, and then he's going to play 2 snaps.
I mean, that's what he does every week. Listen, I said this to a friend of mine that's an Eagles fan. We were texting during the game. And I was like, does it feel like Doug Peterson's trying to get fired in the middle of this game for some of the things he was doing? Like, Wentz plays the first play, which is of the new series, the last play of the first quarter. He comes out. They make a quarterback change for him to run second and third down, and that's it. And he doesn't come back in.
It was a
that
penalty.
made no sense. I know, but the whole situation made zero sense. Like, why couldn't he play first down? Why the start of the second quarter? There is no flow. It doesn't make any sense in any realm for what they're doing.
Yeah, the Eagles are a tough bet because I've been lower on Wentz than anyone. The tweet you're referencing, I tweeted that during his Pro Bowl year. Like, he was good that year, and I was like, no, he's a fraud. Like, he looks good, but he's not good. And of course, I got called an idiot by a lot of people. Now I look less of an idiot for sure, but there's still a lot of excuses everyone has. Pass blocking, weapons, whatever. But every time a new weapon comes back, it doesn't matter. And pass blocking actually hasn't been bad if you look at some of the advanced numbers. Saw someone post something on Twitter, forget who it was, maybe Baldwin, don't remember who it was, posted a chart, pass blocking. It's like comparable to literally Mahomes. It's not bad pass blocking for Wentz. It's above average. So there aren't any excuses for him. How am I going to bet that team, man? Like, the model says 9.3, so there's a little bit of value there. It's not any key numbers or anything. It's similar to like 8.5 and 9, whatever. It's the same thing basically. So I've got to stay away. I think the sharp side is the Eagle side, but I count me out of the sharp side when it's Carson Wentz as the quarterback, man. Like,
I mean, a lot of being on the sharp side is taking bad teams and home dogs and ugly things that just don't look right. I mean, that's part of being on the sharp side. You know, the public side is always the pretty side, but you know, again, everybody's just trying to get to 55%, no matter how you get there. So to be profitable, and when we're picking 5, though, they won't be in my 5. But you know, you want to hear an argument, like I said, about a teaser game? Go ahead, take the Eagles, move them up over 14.5, 15 points. Feel good about that one. Because
the sharp side isn't always a bad team. Remember, I'm on Pittsburgh as a contrarian bet this week. Pittsburgh, I mean, they're not bad, and like I talked about the backup quarterbacks that I'm usually higher on than the market, than the lines that come out. But I don't like taking the backup quarterbacks when it's actually the starting quarterback, and the starting quarterback he didn't get hurt or anything. He's the backup. So he's just that bad. I'm going to stay away on this one. Let's go to the Patriots and the Chargers. The Chargers are at home, and this is a pick-em in the contest. Vegas has moved it to Chargers -1, I believe. But again, like we're not getting excited about any movement at all unless it hits 2 a little bit, but 3 for the most part, of course. Like if it gets to 3 on either side, that's massive movement.
Yeah, I have this as the Chargers -0.5 point. So pretty much in line with where we are with everything. God, this feels like a great spot to take the Patriots. I know they are so bad. I know they're terrible, but you know, I just still believe, and the Chargers just find ways to lose games. And Anthony Lynn is going to get fired. It's just a matter of when and not if anymore. I don't know how many breakdowns you have to read on mistakes that he made, whether it's the end of the first half, the end of the second half last week. And it's not just once, it's not just twice, it's repetitive. It's over and over and over again. And at some point, it becomes being more than a trend, and it just be who you are and your identity. And I'm waiting for the Chargers to make a mistake. And this is going to be the most lopsided coaching matchup of the weekend by far. You have the greatest coach of all time versus a guy who's going to get fired in 3.5 weeks. And that leads me to believe that I should be on New England, and I probably will be. I feel like New England's never going to die, and they're going to sneak into the playoffs somehow because that's what they always do.
Yeah, New England is the side, I would say, especially in these close games. If you think the game's going to be close, there's just such an edge with the coaching. It's insane. Like you said, with it, how many breakdowns of the end of the game from Sharp or whoever else do you need to see to be like, oh yeah, Lynn sucks. And I'll admit, heading into the season, I was like, I didn't have an opinion about Lynn that much. I was like, we'll see. Like, he's done some dumb stuff, but this season, oh boy, he's really taking the cake, and it becomes clear this is probably why they've lost a bunch of close games. So when it's got to set up this closely, I'll take the best coach of all time to win a close one. I think that's not that tough of a call at this point. And this is from number one Charger stan over here. I think the talent is great on the Chargers, and the Eckler is going to boost them and make them better. But boy, it's the Patriots, right? That's easy.
I agree with you. And you know what? You might not want to take a victory lap on James White. You got to take the Austin Eckler victory lap, though, right? I mean, you have to.
Yeah.
We were all over that guy. And he ended up getting, I think it was the career high in touches after he was, they weren't sure if he could handle a whole workload. So,
Rappaport, man, he's not going to be the workhorse quite yet. They're going to ease him in. Okay, all right, yeah, whatever you say.
30 touches, thanks.
Yeah, our whole Slack, you were on him, I was on him. Everyone was on Eckler, and that was a good thing. All right, let's move on. We've got a couple more games here, but I think 3 more games, but they are all really good ones. All ones that are in my top 3 potential, or two of the 3 I would say are in my top 5. Right, the Chiefs and Broncos. We've got that line at 14. I've got it at 16. This is a game where Drew Lock comes back. You're giving me, again, this is like give me the best coach versus the worst coach, and the best quarterback versus the worst quarterback. If it's the square side, if it's the bad side, the public side, whatever, man, I'll take the Chiefs here.
So I have this at 12, so that means a slight edge towards Denver, but I mean, there's no way I can play Denver in this game. I don't care what the number, like, you know what, if this was over 17, then I would probably be like, yeah, I understand taking the Denver side of it. And again, Kansas City is definitely the square side of this, but how in the absolute world could you possibly be on Denver, which is probably going to end up being the correct side watch after all this. But I can't do it. And this is just, it's an automatic pass for me, and we're throwing teasers out there. You could take Kansas City down to 7. All of a sudden you have Kansas City -7. Looks pretty solid. Just give it a touchdown, and we know that the Chiefs are going to score, but something interesting did happen is that the adjustments at halftime by Tampa Bay last week were pretty profound. I mean, they slowed down the Chiefs offense and all of a sudden they were able to score on them. And I'm hopeful that my Pittsburgh Steelers are taking some notes, can maybe emulate some of those things for a potential AFC championship game in which, based upon Twitter and our discussions, we all believe that the Steelers, regardless of record, even at home, would be a 3-point home dog. So I'm just staying away from this. And I get why you'd want to be on Kansas City here. I mean, Kansas City could easily come out and drop 28 in the first quarter and just have this be over very quickly. But I don't feel comfortable, and I'll stay away.
Yeah, to me, this just all comes down to KC's offense versus Denver's defense, and it's hard to simplify things like that. It's in betting, it isn't usually that simple. But to me, there's no way Denver's going to be able to keep up unless it's just one of those situations like we saw with them. I think it was against Atlanta where it's like Atlanta's prevent defense, that's how they caught up. All right, like maybe something like that. But the Chiefs typically don't do that and let teams catch up. Once they're gone, they're gone. So that's why I'm more comfortable betting a team like KC here against a team like Denver, I think is pretty bad, as opposed to some of these other games that we talked about. And I recognize that this could be the wrong side, but it's either don't bet it or take the Chiefs for me, and I would lean towards betting it. But this is the third of the 3 that I left out, and I said, well, 2 of the 3 are the ones that are in my top 5, and the Niners have to be in my top 5 up against the Bills. I've got it highlighted in yellow here, like it's neutral field, adjust for that, right? It's going to be played in Arizona. It's not in Santa Clara because of COVID stuff. But I still like the Niners. I think that's where the value is. I think it's 2 points of value. And it's just two good teams. But this is a battle. I think the Niners, as they're getting healthier, should win.
I am in agreement with you. I think we're kind of we've kind of been lock in step with the Niners here, that we've been on them at the right times. We've jumped off them at the right times. I have this at 1. So obviously getting 2.5 feels like a pretty big bonus. The Buffalo offense is not the same without John Brown. They had do some gimmick things to score last week. What was it? Cole Beasley threw a touchdown pass to Gabe Davis. A lot of Josh Allen runs. San Francisco, despite everything, is getting healthy, getting everybody back, and no one is going to be on them here. Still no respect. Even if this game was in Santa Clara, I feel like the line doesn't really adjust that much because there is no home field advantage anymore. So
I think it's a 1.5. That's a whole nother combo, but I think home field advantage is a 1.5. I think that's what the odds makers are making it.
I was just talking about from a fan perspective of like, there's no crowd noise, there's no anything like that. I'm not talking about the spread numbers. I'm saying in a traditional spot where it's like, ooh, that's a tough place. Like, imagine saying Drew Lock on the road in Kansas City, full stadium, everybody standing the whole game, it's loud. It's not that. It's just completely different. Obviously, that is affected in the line, but I'm with you on San Francisco. I like it. Ride them last week, and I'm more than happy to be on them again in this spot. And I think Buffalo's kind of, I don't want to say fraud, but they can be had. Having said that, Buffalo's clearly going to go and beat Pittsburgh in a week and kind of make me eat my words because that's how the NFL works. But
you got to be careful with who you insult and like call frauds and that kind of stuff, because there's some very passionate fan bases, and Buffalo is one of them, man. I made fun of Josh Allen in the playoff game where he was just like dumping it all over. I think he fumbled a couple times and threw an interception, and I was like, oh man, that was ugly. And people were like, oh, I can't believe you think he sucks. And like, it's just such hurt feelings for me just saying he looked like trash one game. It's like, I'm a Josh Allen fan, so be careful with your Bills slander, man.
I mean, look, last week I was on the Bills against the Chargers for a smaller wager. I thought the line was, did I get fortunate because the Chargers, their malfeasance towards the end of the game? Sure, but whatever. I'm a believer in the Bills for the most part, but I just think they're not quite ready. It feels like they're missing a guy or two, especially the defense isn't as good as it has been or it was last year. And the offense is still like, I don't know, maybe one weapon away from kind of being there. And Josh Allen is taking those steps. And I do remember that playoff game because I had the Bills in Houston last year where he decided to lateral the ball backwards like 30 yards for no reason and essentially threw it out of bounds, which I'm not completely sure why or how that happened. But, of course, they blew a double-digit lead there in the second half against Bill O'Brien, and that's not exactly a achievement that you want to have on your resume, whether you're a quarterback or a head coach. But in this case, give me the Niners in this one.
Yeah, this is a really good spot for these contests too, because like we've talked about, this is a way to get contrarian by not even feeling like you should be contrarian. Like you're not even making any sacrifices. You think it's the right side, but people are going to pick the Bills. I would be very surprised if more people pick the Niners than the Bills this week in the Super. All right, let's move on to the last game then. We've got the Ravens and the Cowboys. The line for this one is 9.5. I have it at 11.5, but this is one I didn't make any adjustments to or anything, so this is a little bit raw. This was one that I realized, I'm missing a game right before we started the podcast. But it seems to me, it's not like I'm going to have to make adjustments here to where Baltimore isn't the play. And you look at, you were able to find on FanDuel and DraftKings this line at 7.5, right? So why don't you talk to me about, number one, what you would do with FanDuel and DraftKings and those lines and what you would do in this contest?
So obviously it's bigger in the contest. My model has it at 9. In this case, I think it's a lot of question marks for Baltimore. I mean, we have an idea of who's going to get cleared in terms of playing, but we're not entirely 100% sure. And even if those players are cleared, it still will be Lamar Jackson with limited or almost no practice going out there and playing. but the Dallas Cowboys are terrible. And from what I've seen, the Baltimore defense is still more than adequate enough to shut down Dallas and make things difficult. In terms of the betting markets, seeing 7.5 was kind of surprising considering normally the Super Contest is a little bit more conservative and they don't want to throw up a terrible line barring situations like the Denver quarterback thing last week. So seeing it kind of reopen 2 points lower than what we're looking at here was kind of shocking. And as we were talking about this on the podcast before we started, I said, I have this at 9. I think this is 7.5. Once everybody gets clear, this line's going to go north. So I bet it. I immediately bet Baltimore minus the 7.5, thinking once more players get cleared. I mean, we're still only barely, 28, 30 hours from the end of the game yesterday. So it's going to take some time. The injury reports are going to come out. The practice reports are going to come out. More and more players are going to get cleared from the COVID protocols. And as those players get cleared, this line is going to go north. If you're going to be on a plane, you think you know the direction of the line, there's no problem betting it early and trying to take advantage of the information and situation, which is exactly what I'm trying to do. Now, if Lamar turns around and gets rolled out in this game, well, I might cash out my bet and kind of maybe take a little bit of a loss. They kind of ding you maybe 5 to 10%, depending upon the situation, which, it could happen. But I have done this a bunch of times this year in spots where I think there's an edge because of the information and the news that's coming. I kind of have a read on what direction I think the line is going. And in this case, I definitely think that the contest thinks they know where the line's going too. So I'm happy to bet something at 7.5 that I think is going to end at 9 or even higher.
Yeah, I am with you on that totally. The contest, like I said, this would be in my top 5, but it's one of those things where you're gonna need more information. If everything is how we're assuming, like Lamar's back and the running backs are back and all that kind of stuff. Mark Andrews, right? Mark Andrews comes back too, right? Man, they were so thin against Pittsburgh. Yeah, I think the Ravens are clearly going to grade out as the better side. And you think about it too, like it's not a rest issue or anything like Pittsburgh because these guys didn't play. These guys weren't playing. So there's not any sort of narrative like that. I mean, I guess they're rusty, or maybe the COVID has had negative effects on these guys. Who actually tested positive? It was Lamar, right?
Lamar, both running backs tested positive. I'm trying to remember who tested positive versus was close contact and needed to be removed.
That's what I was saying. Like, I know
there is a chance that Andrews might not be able to play because of his was later in the week. That is conceivably in play.
Okay, and that would maybe matter a little bit. Like tight ends almost never matter, but Andrews would be like half a point or something. Yeah, that matters when we're talking about these these numbers that we're talking about here. Yeah, I think I would be on the Ravens. I don't have enough information really to tell people either way which side I'm going to be on. So do you have any final thoughts on this for the contest? You talked through the actual lines that are out there right now.
I would just wait and see what direction this goes with it and kind of be patient because it is later. The only problem is with the game being Tuesday, if you have to lock in your picks Saturday or Sunday, you're not going to have all the information. It was like I took the Steelers in the contest last week because they were minus 3.5, and there's a chance that game might have just not played, and I would have gotten possibly 0 points for that. I don't know what the rules were specifically for what would have happened. So ask the question. If you're in a contest, send an email, read them over, make sure you're aware of, hey, if I play this, something happens, there's another outbreak, this game's Tuesday and it gets pushed, do I get to pick an extra game next week? What do I do? If it's canceled Sunday, can I pick the Monday game? Like there's a lot of things that you should kind of be looking into as we're deeper into these contests because you don't want to find yourself losing an opportunity to kind of score some points and possibly move up in the rankings.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, with Baltimore's concerns, it's not inconceivable that this game doesn't play. And you're stuck with, depending on the rules of your contest, just an L, right? At the same time, if you're trailing and you figure that people aren't going to be on this game because of that, you're going to get low ownership on both sides with the picks. So whatever side you want, you can have, and there's a chance that there's going to be line value there by the time you get to the point of having to submit your picks. Like if the deadline were right now and it's 7 points, it's like, all right, 2.5 points of value. You never get 2.5 points of value as a contrarian pick. That just doesn't happen in the contest. So that's an angle to consider if you're trailing and behind. I wouldn't risk it if I were at the top of the contest or in the hunt of the contest in the top 10, top 15, top 20, depending on how big the contest is. So yeah, let's get to our picks. Let's talk about at least 2 or 3 of our favorite sides. I'll start and claim the Niners as my own before you can.
I was gonna let you have them. I figured it was kind of me to let you have the Niners this week. After I believe I took Houston from you last week, and we did give the caveat last week of we like Detroit, but only if Golladay and Swift actually were participating, because otherwise we were like, no, thank you. So I know I said this before, but I love the Colts. I'll be on the Colts, and I think you're going to be joining me on this one. I'll be on the Chicago Bears. And then should I leave New England for you, or do you want me to just go ahead and take the Patriots here in the lopsided coaching matchup? So Chicago, Indy, New England for me. You can have San Francisco, and then whatever else you want to go ahead with.
Yeah, I mean, we could be on the same sides. We're on the same sides a lot. The Patriots would be one of my 3. I've highlighted 3 here. A lot of times on the pod, I'm like scrambling, going, all right, which teams I like again? Try to figure out which would be my top 3. But I did my work ahead of time here, and yeah, the Patriots would be one, and then the Steelers would be the other. I know you're not on the Steelers. You're not on the Steelers yet, but that's such an easy one to convince you on. It's like it's your team. So I just have to hop in Slack and be like, Milo, bet the Steelers this week, and you'll be like, okay, that's not going to be hard to get you on board with the Steelers. So those are the 3 I like the most: the Steelers, the Patriots, and the Niners. And I feel pretty good about those. I mean, those are I don't do a ton of parlays or anything. It's mostly losing bets to do it that way. Just bet them all straight up. But this week, parlay is a little bit tempting, man.
Oh, you want a parlay that's fun? That seems pretty simple. So you could just go Baltimore, Kansas City, Seattle, Pittsburgh, Miami, moneyline parlay. That's definitely
teams.
Listen. I understand that's 5 teams. Everybody's double-digit favorites, though, for the most part. Outside the Steelers are the smallest favorite. I understand it's 5 teams. That's going to pay probably plus 200 or something like that. I'm just saying, even if you just want to take them out, you just want to leave 3. That's fine. You're going to get plus money on your 3, depending upon which ones that you pick. If you want to be on Pittsburgh, just go with the money line parlay, or you could tease these teams. There's so many options now. There's alternate spreads, alternate spread parlays you can do. They'll let you do anything now on these sports books. It's like the Wild Wild West. I was shocked that some of the options, whenever I was clicking through, that I forgot even existed because I've been so focused on sides.
Yeah, if you just want a simpler parlay, like if you can find the Niners as underdogs and the Patriots as underdogs, which it'll be right around there. It's just 2 teams to get around plus 200 for rather than 5 teams. And I know that those teams you're talking about, they're bigger favorites and everything, but I feel pretty good about the Niners and the Patriots in these games, even though they're not big favorites or anything, right? Like the win probability versus the spread maybe is too big of a topic to end on, but brief note here. I don't think it's always perfectly correlated. I don't think that's even that hot of a take either, where it's like, all right, well, you're a 14-point favorite. That means you're this much more likely to win than the team that's 7-point favorite. It's not that simple. Not the way I model anyway. So this is kind of one of those situations where it's like a couple of those 10 – like Miami. I think that the Niners are as likely to win as – or give me the Patriots instead. The Patriots are more likely or as likely to win as Miami, and the spread is very, very different. So I don't know. Any thoughts on that briefly?
It's funny you mentioned that. So I was looking at I saw Fox Bet had Baltimore Ravens at 35-1. I projected them as a playoff team, and I was looking at, okay, so let's say they are a 7 or 8 point dog at Kansas City, a 7 or 8 point dog at Pittsburgh the following week, because they would have to go through those teams if they are the 6 or 7 seed back to back, the way that it kind of sets up, because they do reseed. And I was looking and I was like, okay, if you parlay plus 400 and plus 400, that gets you, plus 1,500, and they would conceivably be favored, or at least in a close spread. So I kind of graded it out as if they were to go and win the Super Bowl, it was basically like a 20 to 22 to 1 parlay, as opposed to the number I saw that was in the mid to high 30s. So then I thought, this is an advantageous bet because I kind of ran through all those things. But like you said, it's not always equal. You're going to look at games, you might see -7 in one game, -7 in another, but the money lines are not the same because they're different, because they understand the likelihood of one of those teams winning might be a little bit different than another one. You are not wrong. But, it's okay to do some of that math on your own and try to figure things out when you're trying to gauge value. And that's, where I kind of landed on my, sprinkled some money on Baltimore. I need to hedge all my Pittsburgh Steelers futures,
Oh, poor guy.
Right? Kansas City plus 135 to win the AFC looks pretty good. It's probably the best number I'm going to get for any type of hedge on Kansas City at this point. So
it's pretty nice to have, all right, well, we've made the playoffs. Now the teams that I need to win are the Chiefs or the Chiefs or the Steelers, a couple of the best teams, and those are the teams. Yeah, that's not bad if you get in at the right numbers and you're able to get Pittsburgh as long as you got them. What were the odds you got in Pittsburgh win Super Bowl?
I think I have a 25 and a 27 for my larger wagers. And then a couple of promotional ones that, because the state of Pennsylvania, we get promotions where, in the Barstool Sportsbook joined in, it's Super Bowl 55 or whatever. They gave everybody 55 to 1, but it's only like $50 or something. So it was like the max bet. So I have a couple of smaller ones like that are promos, but my bigger ones are 25 and 27.
Love it, man. Good show this week. Appreciate you hopping on to talk through everything, sharing your model information with us and all that. Appreciate everyone subscribing and liking the videos, as Milo is great at pointing out. If you are into DFS, we've got you covered on NumberBall. Really cheap price there for the rest of the season, NFL. And then we've got early bird pricing for NBA. NBA is right around the corner, only a few weeks away. So getting all prepped for that and excited to do that. And we'll have to figure out what we're going to do for betting there. But I'm sure we'll figure out something to do.